I know I'm early, but the hit animated film Shrek is nearing its 20th anniversary. Even more crazy is that by the end of 2020, it was added to the US National Film Registry list. So that's one nice thing to come out of 2020 if I'm not mistaken. What can be said about this film? It was a critical and commercial success ever since its debut in 2001. It was the winner of the first Academy Award for Best Animated Feature, beating out Paramount's Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius and Pixar's Monsters, Inc., and is a major element of my nostalgic childhood. Back in the day, me and my older brothers owned all sorts of DreamWorks DVDs, like Madagascar, Over the Hedge, B-Movie, Kung Fu Panda, and of course, Shrek. The titular character is an ogre who prefers to isolate himself from the rest of society in a swamp where he can scare off any passersby. His swamp is soon filled with a bunch of fairy tale creatures exiled by the short-statured Lord Farquaad. Try not to giggle at that name. Shrek storms to the Lord's castle, accompanied by a talking donkey, and is given the quest of rescuing Princess Fiona from a castle guarded by a fire-breathing dragon. If he succeeds, he will get his swamp back the way it was. That's what motivates him to start the journey, the fact that he can get back his privacy in return for a deed such as rescuing the princess. This is what the first act displays. He really wants to be all by himself. The second act is when the film starts to get really good. The chemistry between Shrek and Fiona is truly established. We know that Farquaad wants to be king, and the only way he can do that is if he marries a princess. That's why he sends Shrek on this mission to save Fiona. Yet Shrek's developing his own bond with Fiona, as in actually getting to know her instead of just starting off wanting her right away just because she looks pretty. But to make things more interesting, the princess has a secret. I know what you're thinking. Farquaad's not a king yet just because he's single? Isn't that a little cliche? First off, he's not of royal blood. Second, this film is full of cliches. That's what it's all about. The idea of this film is as a spoof to the fairy tale culture, particularly on Disney for how they dumb down classic stories, sometimes by inserting unneeded side characters and pop culture references. This is basically a Disney movie in a nutshell, along with some dirty humor. Yeah, I said that. Kids watching are not going to understand most of the jokes in this movie. When Shrek says Farquaad may be compensating for something, you might think at first that's referring to his size compared to his big castle, but what it really means... You know what, just Google it, or watch the movie. They refer back to this joke later. What about the welcome song for Duloc?
Dip your feet off the ground, shine your shoes, wipe your face.
Do I even need to say why this is funny? Oh man, I haven't even scratched the surface of these jokes. Watching the film today, the animation is still good, but it's pretty dated. The character models are not some of the best we've got in terms of computer-generated imagery. Not necessarily how they look, but the way they move is not the most up-to-date. There's even a small animation flaw during the third act. Watch the film yourself to find it. But hey, there were live-action films during that time that implement computer effects that age even worse. I'm not naming names here, but The Phantom Menace should really have focused less on using CG and tried something more practical. Die Another Day should really have taken lessons from Lord of the Rings. For the characters themselves, we got big names to play the characters. They originally had Chris Farley voice the main character, but he died before he got all his recordings done, so Mike Myers was hired to replace him. He wanted a complete script rewrite, and all of his lines were spoken in a Scottish accent, coming from other films he starred in, like Austin Powers' The Spy Who Shagged Me. Other big names include Eddie Murphy, Cameron Diaz, and John Lithgow. The sequels would go off to also include big names. Shrek 2 would have John Cleese, Julie Andrews, Antonio Banderas, Rupert Everett, and Larry King. Shrek the Third brought in Eric Idle, Justin Timberlake, and Maya Rudolph. And Shrek Forever After... Well, I can't really think of any other big names that got introduced to the franchise to play the characters, except for maybe Jane Lynch, but she was just a very minor role. Like, so minor, it's not even worth mentioning. But anyway, what are my thoughts on the entire franchise? Well, I'm mainly focusing on the first film in this review, but I'll probably get to the other films sometime. Might as well share my thoughts. The first Shrek movie is a big part of my childhood. Watching it today, it still holds up pretty well. I know that many people prefer Shrek 2 over the first movie because of its extended storyline and characters. That's all well and good, but I think the first Shrek, especially in the second act, is the definitive Shrek movie. However, I don't see anyone defending the later two Shrek movies, especially not Shrek the Third. I think you can figure out why. But anyway, Shrek's a huge franchise. I just love to simply sit on my couch for the first film. The second film is great, but I like the first film the best.